Hi, I'm Marianne,
And I'm Lorna.
and we'd like to welcome you to the Isn't She Amazing podcast today. And we had such a crazy week last week, working on all our activities to get Isn't She Amazing up and off the ground and so forth. And speaking of getting it up and off the ground, what did we do, Lorna?
We jumped out of an airplane.
That's off the ground, right?
On his way off the ground.
So
It's a little crazy. I think it was a little bit of an extreme message.
nothing like us to overstate something. But let me find out, because that was your very first airplane jump.
It was.
We went on tandem jumps. You and I were in the same airplane, but somehow you were the last in line getting on the plane, which meant what?
I was the first one out of the plane. I'm almost thinking maybe they identified me as the weak link and thought we've got to get her out of the plane first.
Let's throw her
I
off
must have
first.
seen that look on my face like, maybe I can still get out of this.
Well, and I was sitting about 4 people behind you thinking, oh, she's going to be really mad at me. But okay, so so the guys are clipped to you, and they really
cute guys.
Yes, that was a good perk.
That was a good thing.
So they hook themselves up to you once you're sitting in the airplane.
Right. And I was a little worried because when they first kind of start hooking you up I was thinking, this is a little bit loose. Should it be loose? And then when we were sitting there and then he starts kind of buckling me in and I'm thinking, okay. Yeah.
Feels a little intimidating.
Yeah.
So here you were. I guess you figured out you were going to be the first one off, right? Since you were sitting right next to the door.
I don't think I really realized it till probably we were halfway up. And then I thought, oh, I'm like the one that is right here. And then when he says, you need to scooch down and sit on the ground, and he starts opening the door, I'm thinking, I don't think I'm ready. The one thing I have to say is they did a really good job of just giving you information as you needed it.
That's true.
Which I think was a little kind of kept you a little calmer because you didn't have everything at once and you couldn't worry about it because they just pieced one step at a time. Buckle you, right?
That's a really good point, because I think the last time I went, you had a video you had to watch, and they went through kind of a little mini class about what to expect. And I was, my mouth was pretty dry. I was so scared. So you liked the way they did it?
I did, because it didn't, you were kind of wondering, when are they going to, I was wondering, when are they going to do my goggles? They had goggles in that picture or that video that they were showing. And then all of a sudden, the goggles popped up. He put them on your, and he didn't tell you how you were going to land until you were getting ready to land. And so when they kind of gave you the instruction. So I think that was a little, for me, was a little distracting. And it wasn't so overwhelming because I didn't have to remember when I land, I have to do my legs this way. I just had to remember that one, when you jump out of the airplane, hold your arms like this. But I don't think I followed it because I looked at the video and I'm holding him like this. So I didn't follow the directions from the beginning.
Well, so tell me, you're sitting on the edge of an open airplane, cute guy hooked behind you, but your legs are now hanging over the edge.
And they're flying, they're going sideways. And then you're out. Then he pushes you out. I'm thinking, where are my legs gonna go? And then I'm in the air. But it was all that was pretty awesome.
What were your last thoughts before you left the plane? Do you remember?
It was about my legs. I kept thinking how I thought it was my legs are how is this gonna go? And then we were in the air. I was really worried, more apprehensive about the free fall than I was about when we slowed down. And surprisingly, the free fall I enjoyed more.
So that was about a minute, right?
Mhm.
And you looked up. You said we were going what?
About 120 miles an hour, give or take.
Okay, so that's almost half the way of the whole
Right.
jump because it was 11,000 feet. So he did give you a 3, 2, 1. You probably weren't sure what that was all about, right?
It wasn't because he didn't tell us.
And then they pull their chute and tell me what happened then.
So when he does that, there's this huge cloud. I don't know, did you have that big cloud that you went through? There was this
Uh,
big
not,
cloud.
I don't think.
And I'm thinking, how are we gonna get through that cloud? Like, what's it gonna be on the other side of it? Like, well, how far are we from the ground? Because you don't, I mean, you could kind of get a sense, but you're going so fast. And then we kind of went through the cloud, and then that it went up. And then I kind of started to panic because I could see all those big bodies of water, and I'm thinking, where are we gonna land? What if we land in the water? What if the wind takes us? Which then we did at some point. We did get like this big wind gust, and the wind started kind of taking us. And then I started worrying about that. And then I thought, what's gonna happen? I'm gonna like break my legs. How am I gonna land? So going down there, I was thinking all of this stuff while I was free falling. I just enjoyed it. I just was like, this is pretty cool. I
Very
wasn't
cool.
afraid. I thought I would have been.
Well, then what happened as you were landing? Was it as scary as you thought?
Nope.
They're pretty good at steering it, aren't they?
They're
Right to
really
that
good at steering you, and
little plot of land this big.
and you're right on yeah, it was like before you knew it, you were down. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it wasn't anything like I was expecting. So I had all of this fear. Well, you saw, when I was signing those in, you're just like, just go ahead and
Ah,
are you sure we should sign it? We didn't get any instruction. We'll get instruction. Just go ahead and sign. But it was, I think it really what it really kind of for me highlighted a lot. Like you're so afraid of certain things, and like the things that I was afraid of, I enjoyed the most.
oh, well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So here it really was exhilarating and terrifying all at the same time
Right.
when this gorgeous, beautiful landscape kind of comes into view.
Yeah.
And so here's a question for you. We have a clear message to our Isn't She Amazing community.
Right.
Why on earth would we pick a skydive to communicate our initial message to all the women out there in the world?
Because our initial message is you just have to take that first step and jump. It's scary, but you just have to take that first step. And so ours was a little extreme.
It's a big step.
But it is, I mean, that is like, and also just, I think for me, like somewhat like one of the things that kind of came about and really recognizing, and I think this is probably what we've been trying to get across anyway, it just didn't click in my head, was the confidence that you get when you do that. Like you think, oh gosh, I did that and I didn't die. I didn't get hurt. I actually loved it.
Big win.
Big win. I was afraid, but I didn't have any, I probably exerted all this energy. And I really did, because remember when we were in the car and Bob kept saying to us, I can't believe you guys aren't like getting ready to jump out of an airplane and aren't a little bit more nervous.
That's
And
right. Bob's my husband. Bob's my husband, by the way. He was driving us.
The chauffeur.
That's right. That's right.
But it was, when I wasn't until we got close, that's when I started to get really nervous. So I think that's really the message is it's all scary if you don't know if you've never done it.
Well, and so believe it or not, I think God gives us illustrations for what we're going to do and what we're trying to teach other women and so forth. And even the cloud that you had to go through, so you couldn't see anything. It's like when you're in an airplane way up on a commercial and you're flying through a cloud and all you see is white.
Right.
It's beautiful. It's wondrous, but you can't see anything else.
Right.
And you made a really good point about you got instruction 10 seconds before you were supposed to do it.
Right.
Before you jump out of the plane, you put your legs under his legs, that kind of thing. When you're
Right.
supposed to jump out, you grab hold under the thing. You don't let your hands just wave in his face.
All over.
But then they tell you to do that. They tell you
Right.
to open up your arms and just fly. And that's
Right.
an amazing feeling. And so everything we were afraid of, they had already thought through. Thousands of people have done that, and
Right.
they haven't had one incident
Right.
at this particular place. And so you watch the people before you go up that are packing the parachutes and
Right.
rolling up and
Rolling them.
checking the hooks and everything, and you think that's a hugely important job.
Right.
So even though we didn't know exactly what it was going to be like, they had taken all the precautions ahead of time.
Right.
And so I think the things we want to do in life, we should do. We should take the first step,
Right.
and then it will unfold for us as we go.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
You're right. Because
And
we don't know we don't know where it's going to lead us. I mean, we use analogy just with what we're doing. We don't know where this is really. We have a plan,
yep.
but we're kind of plodding along, and every day something new materializes. Okay, let's do this. So let's try this.
Mm-hmm.
But
And
you do.
as you're flying and you see all those man-made little lakes around there, and there's alligators in every single one because we're in Florida, to trust the guys that are taking us because they know how to control the parachute.
Right. Right.
Which is a really good illustration of, you sent me a article this morning, I think it was, that,
Oh, right.
that
But the
said
team.
you have to have somebody working with you. You have to trust other people.
Right.
And you don't trust people blindly.
Right.
Because we looked at their history. They have no history. We looked at their reviews. They have great reviews.
Right.
We looked at their qualifications. They have great qualifications. So just because you're going to take the leap into something you want to do doesn't mean it's without risk. But I think every time you do anything new, there's calculated risks.
Right.
And so we took calculated risks.
Right.
And trusted the people who were taking us there. But so what are some of the ways this applies to the women in our audience about the things they might want to do?
As far as?
Well, we deal with women in transition, women who are empty
Right.
nesters, women over 50, empty nesters, transition, scary. You don't see how you're going to live without your kids under your roof.
Right.
They go off to college. The over 50 divorce is increasing.
Right.
They call that gray divorce.
Great divorce. Yeah.
And then we have to take finances change when you're no longer working. You have to get a different kind of insurance or
you're
all
getting
these
ready to
kinds of things.
retire, and you're not, you're going to start taking money out of your retirement accounts, and what does that look like? Yeah, no, I think it is, you're just having to, like you said, you have to plan, but you do have to look at, what do I want this next phase to look like?
Yeah.
And so if you're in transition, if you're thinking, I mean, I'll use like me as an example. I was like, I feel like I want to have a career change.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really know what I wanted that to look like. I had some idea, but I was never imagined, a year and a half later, that I'd be doing a podcast or jumping out of an airplane, skydiving. Because as I told you when you brought it up, that was on my bucket list years ago, but I thought I was too old to do it. And apparently I wasn't.
And so what's your message about women over 50 who think they're too old, they're washed up, they're
I think you're
overlooked,
never too old. I think you just have to be brave and you just have to do something, and you're not too old. We have,
Mhm.
the second half of our life is still ahead of us.
Yeah.
So what do we want that to look like? And then take a step. You just have, I mean, we'll keep talking about this. It's all about taking that first step, which is the scariest.
Well,
The
it is,
scariest.
especially in something like that. It's like, I remember the first time I did a skydive, and I was older than you are now when I did that for the
Right.
first
Yeah. So
time,
it was.
which is why I wanted to do it around my birthday. I was 69 years old the day we did that. And
Right.
it's like, we want to show women that we're unlimited or we're limited only by our thoughts.
Only by our thoughts. You're right.
And whether you want to start a nonprofit or you want to start a new business, or whether you want to retire completely and just go to an island and read a book forever, no matter what you want to do, it really helps to have a community to support you as you're making those decisions.
Right.
And do a little research. You and I have both run marathons and stuff like that. We
Yeah.
never did that before. Neither of us were runners, but
No.
that's why God created Google. It's like,
Or you get that book that tells you how do you train for a marathon, and then you
right,
go out and you run the first mile, and then
that's
before you
right.
know it, you're running 16 miles. And
Yeah,
yeah, it is. It really is. But you do. I mean, I think a lot of our messages take the jump, have a plan, understand that the plan may not be, it may not materialize the way you want it to,
mhm.
but you'll end up happier. I mean, I think that's the other thing is just, like what we've done is more extreme. Most women aren't going to jump out of a airplane and skydive,
But they could.
they could, and they could just like really take a step back and say, like, what brings me joy? Like my husband Bernie's like, I am so tired because I'm singing the Tim McGraw song. I went
Oh, I mean, skydiving, Rocky Mountain
Rocky Mountain.
climbing,
And he's like, when are you gonna stop singing this song?
and never.
Or I was while we were watching TV and there was like some badass lady jumping out of an airplane for like a crime show, and I was like, that was me. Like, and he's like, okay, you're like, enough. But if obviously has brought me a lot of joy.
Yes,
I
and
think
confidence.
that's the point of like me working around singing, and me like it just brings me joy because I'm thinking, gosh, that was like such a cool feeling. And it's like that I did it. I'm awesome that we keep talking about.
Yeah,
That was the feeling. I mean, it was exhausting. Like we were both saying how exhausted we were, I guess, from that
a lot of
adrenaline.
emotional energy goes into
Yeah.
something like that, just like it goes into when you're starting a business or you're trying to, change a marriage or
Right.
raise your kids. Life can be exhausting, but you
Right.
keep going, give yourself time to recover, and keep making the changes you want to make, because
Right.
we want to go out in a ball of light.
Right. Right.
We have our time on earth gets shorter as we get over 50, but
Right.
there's no reason why we can't make a big impact, influence a lot of people for good,
Right.
help people who need us, and I think most women over 50 are feeling that way. They want to make a difference, but they don't know where to go.
Well, and I've been noticing even just like, even if it's as simple as that you're a positive force in someone's life. And you
Yeah.
just like, I really, been paying attention to that recently of how many people, like focus so much on the negative instead of on the blessings or
Yes.
on the good aspects. And, that whole saying that your thoughts become reality. And so then you can, in this perpetual negativity, whereas that could just be it. If you have joy and you're happy, you're going to show that with other people, and maybe that's going to have an impact on them. It
Yes.
doesn't have to be, it can be simple.
Well, and you're going to have an impact on somebody's life no matter what, just because
Right,
the world is
right,
full of people. So we can choose the impact we're going to make.
right.
We
Yeah,
can be an inspiration and an encouragement and a supporter, whatever they happen to need.
right.
So Lorna, since we're big about taking that first step,
Yeah.
if the women that are watching this podcast, if you were to give them one piece of advice about an idea they have, but they don't know if they can do it, they don't know if they're too old, they don't know if they're qualified, what would you tell them?
I'd say the first step is to just look and see what's required. And then just say, I am going to do that one little step. I'm going to research and find out what I need to do, or I'm going to make that appointment with a therapist, or I'm going to go to the store and buy, if I want to make something, and buy the materials so I can make it, like whatever that one thing is. And I think the other thing is that so many people look at it, this is human nature at a project, and it's so overwhelming, but also just like carve out 20 minutes, doesn't have to be that much time to think about what do we want to do. I mean, how long did it take to make the reservation for the skydive? Once we decided, in that 20 minutes, you can accomplish a lot. So what do you just carve out, that would be my advice, is carve out those 20 minutes.
Oh, good. So here's good advice too, is go to Groupon first, because you can get a better price if you go to Groupon to go to the skydiving place. So we got a good deal on that too. And so I got my Groupon, then I got our tickets, and then we bought the video package to go with it, because when you're going to do something, make sure you create an avenue to create a memory. Take pictures, write articles, use the information that you gain to influence somebody else's life.
Absolutely.
And you're always great at telling us, just take that first step.
Just take the first. I think that's going to be like when we were talking the other day about what's our obituary going to look like. Maybe that'll be what my tombstone says. Just
take that first step. She took that step.
She took that step right into the grave.
Wow. Well, we had a good time, and I'm glad you were with me doing that.
Yeah, so am I. It was
so
awesome.
we want to ask everybody else to join us and post in the chat below if you've ever taken a skydive. How was it? What'd you think? Or is there something you're planning on doing? And what's that first step you're going to take? So thanks for joining Isn't She Amazing podcast for today. And we'll see you again real soon.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.